Chapter 9, Section 2 in the 7th grade note-taking guide is entitled Perimeter and Circumference. So we've now taken a look at basically in Chapter 8 all of the proprietary two-dimensional shapes. Now we actually have to start using them in ways, and what they're going to do here is teach us perimeter and circumference and then the area, because that's how we put all the components together to then find surface area and volume, which is what your standards expect you to know. So that's where we're going to start here off with the perimeter and the circumference piece, area next, then we'll head into the 3D. So, definitions here. Perimeter. Perimeter is the distance around a geometric figure. Now, perimeter is something that can be measured. If we're talking about circumference, we're still talking about the distance around a shape, but we're talking about the distance around a circle. And the reason they call it something different is because that one we can't really measure. We can't take a ruler to it because it's a curved surface. You can't measure a curve like that. So perimeter is the distance around a geometric figure, a sided shape, and the circumference is the distance around a circle. Then they define pi. And the reason they define pi here is because in order to find the circumference, one of the components of the formula that's involved is pi. So by giving us pi here, we're then setting ourselves up to use that in the different circle formulas, including the circumference formula. Pi is simply the ratio of circumference to diameter in a circle, approximately 3.14, or sometimes approximated as 22/7. It's the ratio of the circumference to the diameter in a circle, which is approximately 3.14 or 22/7. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the first example here at the bottom of the page. What they're asking you to do here is they're asking you to find the perimeter of the polygon. So, of course, if we're finding the perimeter, we're finding the distance around the shape. So all we're doing is adding up all the sides here. In this case, all three sides of the triangle. So we've got a 25 and a 25 and a 15. So I'm adding up 25, 25, and 15. And when I add those up, I get 65. So the perimeter around the triangle is 65 centimeters. The distance around the triangle is 65 centimeters. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here at number 2. Number 2 is another perimeter question, but they're asking me to find the perimeter of the rectangle. Same thing, though. It doesn't change anything just because it's a different shape. I'm still going to add up all the sides because I'm finding the distance going around the shape here. Now, the one thing they are showing you here is the formula for finding perimeter of a rectangle. It would be the same formula for a square. They're saying here that you've got two lengths, two sides that measure 18, of course, and then two widths, two sides that measure 14, and you're supposed to add those two up. Well, two 18s make 36, and two 14s make 28. So I'm adding up 36 and 28. When I add up the 36 and the 28, I get 64. So the perimeter of the rectangle, the distance around the entire shape, is 64 feet. The mistake sometimes people make here is they just say, oh, well, I see 18 and 14, I'm going to add that up and call that the answer because those are the only sides that are labeled. It's got to be the distance all the way around the shape. So you've got to make sure you take the time to transcribe the congruent sides there and make sure you label those yourself then, 18 and 14, so you add up all four sides. Now in number 3 here, they're asking me to find the circumference of the circle to the nearest tenth using 3.14 for pi. Again, the trick here is you cannot go and measure it with a type of ruler or tape measure. You can't do that. When you're finding the circumference of a circle, you have to use a formula. And the formula is pi times the diameter. Now for our purposes, we're going to be using pi as 3.14 most of the time, unless the book tells us otherwise. It's nice for a calculator, but the problem with the actual value of pi is that when you use the actual value of pi and then you use a calculator to multiply, that answer, unless it's just the most perfect answer ever, is almost always going to take up the whole screen, which is very difficult to then go ahead and transcribe onto writing. So we just use 3.14. That gives you a finite answer, usually on a calculator, much easier to transcribe. You can also use the formula 2 pi r for finding the circumference. 2 times pi times the radius is another way you can find the circumference. It doesn't matter which one you use. I would use this one if they gave you the diameter like they did in this question. I would use this one if they drew you a radius. Okay, so if we go ahead and take a look at this here now, we've got a diameter of 12, so the formula says take pi and multiply it by the diameter. So I'm taking 3.14 and multiplying it by 12, and I get 37.68, which they rounded off to 37.7 because the directions said nearest tenth. So it's about 37.7 inches going all the way around the circle, one full revolution. Now as we take a look at number 4 here, in number 4, it says the diameter of a circular pond is 42 meters. What is its circumference? And here now they are actually asking us to use 22/7 for pi. So this will be one of the few times we actually end up doing that. So pi times the diameter, so 42 is my diameter, times pi, 22/7. And as you can see, the reason they're doing that here is because when I'm taking 22/7 and multiplying by 42, on that diagonal with 7 and 42, we're going to have cancellation occurring because 7 and 42 have a common factor of 7 here. I can pull 7 out of both 7 and 42, and that's what they're showing you right here. They're going to take 42 and chop it by 7, and when they take 42 and chop it by 7, we get 6. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and all we end up being left with here are integers to multiply. The solution is 22 times 6. 22 times 6 is 132. So the circumference of the pond is about 132 meters. So if a pond is 42 meters across, it's a 132 meter walk all the way around the pond. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the concluding examples here in the Check It Out section. Number 1 is asking me to find the perimeter of the polygon. So what we get when we add up all the sides of the polygon. Well, as you can see, we've got a 20 and a 25 and a 30 here. So I'm going to add those up. 20 and 25 is 45 plus 30 is 75. So it's 75 centimeters all the way around the triangle. Number 2, a lot like the earlier question, they want to make sure that you transcribe the side lengths here. So you've got an 8 down here, which is going to match up with an 8 up here, of course, and a 16 over here, which is going to match up with the 16 over here. Now find the perimeter. So you're doing 8 plus 16 plus 8 plus 16, or 24 and 24, which is 48, as in 48 feet. All right, number 3. Find the circumference of the circle to the nearest tenth using 3.14 for pi. Kind of an interesting question, a little bit different than the one we did earlier because they only gave us the radius here. So here now you've got to use that other formula you were presented a minute ago, 2 times pi times the radius. So the formula says take 2, multiply it by 3.14, then multiply it by the radius which they gave us, which is 11. So I'm doing 22 times 3.14 in essence. And when I do 22 times 3.14, the result is 69.08. And of course they rounded to the nearest tenth again, which is how they'd come up with 69.1. Alright, last one. The diameter of a circular spa is 14 meters. What is its circumference? So, and again, here they're asking us to use 22/7 for pi again. So pi, 22/7 times the diameter, which is 14. And again, the reason they're having us use 22/7 is because this is going to cancel with this guy to make something pretty simple. And that's indeed what we're going to do here. The 7 and 14 both cancel out with a 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 14 divided by 7 is 2. We multiply across and we get 44 meters. So a circular spa that has a diameter of 14 meters can be walked around in a distance of 44 meters.